Hello and welcome to sapyard.com. Today we will learn how to consume NetSuite REST API with OAuth 2.0 from SAP. We will first see how it can be done using Postman, and then we will do the same using SAP ABAP program. We will go step by step, and even if you have never used Postman or never written ABAP code to consume REST API, you will be able to understand and implement the same in your SAP system. On a high level, in order to consume the NetSuite REST API, we have to follow 3 steps. So step 1, which is unfortunately a manual step, you need to get a code from NetSuite. So we will have to call a URL in this format where you have to give the scope, which will be provided by the NetSuite team, redirect URL, which will again be provided by the NetSuite team, response type is code, and client ID they will provide you, and the state, I think this will be constant because this is also the same in the NetSuite's manual. So once you run this URL, you will get a code in the browser. That code you need to go and put it in step 2. So using that code, we have to get the access token. Alright, so I'll show you exactly how you can get it. And once you get the access token, you need to put in the actual REST API where you want to post things. So in that post API, you have to give the token which you have generated in step 2. So there are 3 steps. One is to get the token, second is use the token and get the access code, and then third is post using the access token. Now let me do the first step. So in order to do the first step, I need to build a URL like this, which I have already built. Here I'll copy this, I'll go to a browser, paste it, and then it will ask for user ID and password, which the NetSuite team will provide you. Now I'll hit login. So when it logs in, it will ask for your approval. That means a manual step is needed which will give or grant you the access. So you have to hit this continue button. So if I hit continue, it will take you to the callback URL. So this is giving us error, but don't go with this error because it is not configured properly. But the code is this one. If you see here in the browser, you will see here this code. So this is what we need. So we'll need this code in order to perform our next step. For the next step, we need to go to Postman. In the Postman, we have to get the access token. So if you see here, I have already created a post method. So where you will be provided a URL to get the token. In the params, you need to give nothing. In the authorization, you have to give the client ID and client secret, and it will auto generate your authorization, which is basic. You see here, it is a basic one which has client ID and client authorization. And then you need to have the connection type as this one, application, and then URL encoded. So this is very important. In the body, you have to give the code which you just got from the browser. So if I go here, so it might have expired, but if you go here, you need to copy this after this equal to sign, copy this and put it in your Postman. If you see here, Postman, and rest all remains same. So redirect URL the NetSuite team will provide you, and the grant type will also be provided by the NetSuite user. In the body, you entered this. Now if I hit here and if the code is still valid, you should get a success. But here it's saying invalid grant. So let us get the code quickly and then put it in the Postman before it expires. So I'll go to the same URL again. I'll give the same URL. So since my user ID and password is saved, it did not ask for it. I'll hit continue. A code will be generated. I'll copy this code, go to Postman, paste it here, and then hit send. So check this. So you got the access token. So in the next step, you need to copy this access token and then do your posting. So we just completed step 1. Step 1 was to get the code, that is from the browser, which unfortunately is a manual step. Step 2 is get token. We did in Postman. Now we will post it using the access token in Postman again. So let me go to the Postman. So here is the steps 3. So this is the final URL or the API which NetSuite would provide you. So you will have some different names based on your credentials. So in the param it is nothing. In authorization it is no auth. In the header you need to give the bearer token. So if you see here, the connection type is application/JSON, and the authorization is fixed. So this will always be bearer space and then the access token which you got in step 2. Alright, so it's giving me some error, new line. Alright, give me a moment. So I added this in the wrong spot. It should not be here, so let me delete it and then put it in bearer. So it should be bearer space and the access token, and then you need to go to the body. So body of your request should be the actual JSON data which the NetSuite team would have given you. So it is like user, it should be like field and then the value, the field and the value, field and the value. So this is in JSON format, and here if you see I put in the raw. Now if I hit send, I should get a success message. Alright, it gave me could not send request because the access token must have expired. So I'll do the same exercise one more time. So I'll go to the step 2. I'll copy the refresh token one more time. Make sure you are within the codes. I'll go to step 2, bearer space the token whatever you got, and hit the send button. You see here the status is okay, 204. So we are good. That means you were able to post the NetSuite API and send the data to them. So if you get a status of 200 series, that means you are good. If you get 400 or 500, that means there is some issue. So if I do some, so knowingly I put something wrong here, say I don't put a space after bearer, and if I send here, you will see this, you will get a bad request. And if I say I put bearer and then space and then I put say the body in a wrong format, say I don't put in a correct format. So let me do this, and if I send here, it is again giving me a bad request because the format has to be same exactly how your NetSuite team is expecting you. Alright. So our NetSuite team wanted it in a string format. First they wanted us to send a JSON and then a string, JSON in a string format. Therefore we have this slash before the quotes, and if I hit send, it should again give me the status 204. Now let us go to SAP and try to do the same steps. Alright. Okay, so we have created a program. I'll show in details what is done, but let me show you how it works. So we need to put the generated code and then it will create the access token and then post it. So in order to do that, we need to go to the browser and then generate the code one more time because the other one must have expired by now. So if I hit enter, it will ask me to grant the access. Okay, then the code will be generated. I copy this code and go to the program, paste it and then execute. So if you see here, the generated code, this was okay, and then it generated a access token. So this is the access token. We use this access token and put in step 3 and it gave the return as 204. So this is how we simulated exactly what SAP NetSuite was expecting. Now unfortunately it seems that these manual steps cannot be overwritten. So I don't know when NetSuite will have a real REST API where we can get the access token directly and then put it there. So if this step would be removed by NetSuite, that would be awesome because this doesn't make sense. It doesn't meet the purpose of making a seamless call from third party to NetSuite. So hopefully NetSuite is listening. So in the next part now, we'll go step by step in ABAP code how we can achieve this step 2 and step 3. Let us now look into the ABAP side of the world. So what we need to do is step 1, which is the manual process. So we will input that code in the selection screen. Okay, so we do not know how we'll get it. So say somehow NetSuite is able to give us the code, we will input it. After that, what we need to do is we need to call this URL. So what is the URL? This is the URL which you are giving in the step. So this URL you have to call. So we are using the class HTTP client, and we are doing with create by URL. So this URL which is here in the post in the step to get access token, we have to pass that. So we have saved it in the TWARC table, so we do not want to show that to you. Then we have to call the post method. So gc post is the post method, which is nothing but this post which you see here. So we are get, post, patch, delete, everything. So we will be using post to get the access token. So we have used the same in the program. So please forgive if you see this like procedural language, but you can write it better, but this is just for the demo purpose. So next we have to authenticate. So how do we authenticate? So we authenticate it with the user ID and password, which is nothing but the client's ID and client secret, or consumer ID and consumer secret. So where do we see it in Postman? So if you go to the Postman, you will see it in the authentication, username and password. So whatever you enter here, the same thing you have to enter here using this class method, that is authenticate. So here we go. Next we have to set the headers. So header cookie and value. So if you go to the headers, there are so many of them, all are not mandatory. So you can see whichever is crossed out, you do not need it. So we have put in the program whatever is needed, so you can easily find that out. So if I go here, first is cookies and cookies value. So what is the cookie? If you see this is the cookie. Okay, this is the attribute name, and this is the attribute value. So if you see a cookie, the cookie is cookie here, the same as what is here. And what is the value? Cookie value is NS routing version leading, where whatever you are giving in Postman. So we are actually just replicating whatever you are doing in Postman in our ABAP program. So first we added the cookie, then we are trying to add the content type. So what is the content type? If you see here, if I go to Postman and if you scroll down, if you see a content type is on the bottom, and the content type is application, then slash form URL encoded. So same thing here. So if you see here, content type, it is content type, and the content type value is gc app form, so which is nothing but application form URL encoded. So again we are just trying to mimic whatever we did in Postman in your SAP ABAP program. And then set body with code. So we have to send the data to the URL, right? You are posting something to get the access token. So whatever you are adding in the body. So what are you adding in the body? You are adding the code. Code means that we get from the browser. So whatever you get, you add here. Then you have to add redirect URI, which your NetSuite team will give, and the grant type, which the NetSuite team will give, which is authorization underscore code. So how did we do that? We just put that in a string, right? So we have concatenated code equals to this, so which is on the right side, redirect URL equal to this side, and then grant type equal to authorization. So just note the syntax. You have to just concatenate it using and put it in a string, then get the string length, and then just call this method request set underscore c data, give the data and the length. That's all. So you have now made whatever was there in the Postman. So after that, we just need to send method. So this is nothing but we are just a send command, and then receive method. So it will receive it, and then we get the response. So what is the response? You will get the HTTP code and the text. So usually if you get a 200 series, then you are good. And after that, we are trying to read the data. So read the data means whatever is the access token which you are getting, we are putting in a string, and then we will parse it, or we will then read it and then separate it from all the junk values which you get. So in this you get access token and refresh token. So we are just interested in access token, and you will read it. This code has been written based on whatever you get in the access, and this is a very generalized code. So whatever REST API you are using, if they are sending you access token, then you can use this logic. So this code we have tested in with not only with NetSuite, we have also tested it with Boomi and also with Salesforce code, and it works equally good. All right, so we'll also see the access token. So I think it's too much of theory now. Let's look in debug up to here. So we'll check till step 2 here and see how the code looks in debug mode. So for that I need to get the code. So how do I get the code? I'll just go back and again copy that, go to my browser, and then I'll enter my browser, give my user ID and password, and then hit continue. So it will return me a code. I'll take this code, go to my program, I'll enlarge it this time, and then execute. So if you see here, you got you gave this generated code and you got the NetSuite return code as 200 and okay, and you got the access token here. Now let me debug it again. So I have given the code. Now I have put a breakpoint. Let me see how the code looks. So here, so we are getting the access token from the URL. So once I get the URL, I'll just call it by create by URL, and then I go back. I'll just do the post method, that is JC post. You see here post. Then we need to authenticate. So I have the user ID and password, or client secret and client ID, and then call this method to authenticate it. Then I set the cookies. So cookies is nothing but you are just set header. So this method is setting the cookie and the value, and then we are also setting the content type, which is the form URL encoded. So I'll not go inside, and then set the body with the code. So if I see here, so in this case, if you see the body, it is like code, the code which you got on the browser, redirect URL, and then the grant type. So which is nothing but whatever you entered here in the body of the Postman. All right, so this is same thing, but it is in one string with concatenate. You get the length, string length of the 149, and then pass it. And then we have just the passed or send method, and then receive method, and then get the response. So response should always be 200 series, which means which passed. And the text was, oh, we get a bad request because we have used the token for a very long time. So usually the token has an expiry. So the code which you got in the browser has an expiry. So let me put a breakpoint directly here and get a fresh code, and then come back to here. All right. So I have taken a fresh code and I have reached directly to the get response. Let's see how it goes. So now if you see, the OK code is 200, the status was 200, and let me get the response. So response will be a lot of characters. So if I see here, so if you see here the response, let me go to a tabular format. So if you see here, you have everything here. You have the access token, and if you scroll down, you will also find the refresh token. All right, so you will find everything. Now we need to parse, or we need to separate it. So if you see here, here's a refresh token, and top it was access token. So now you need to use your ABAP skill to separate this access token from rest of the characters. So which we are doing in the next step. So if you see here, I have given read API token key. So if I go here, if I go F5, now I am using the field symbols and all the stuffs. We know exactly at which character we have. So I know exactly when it starts. So if I go here, I'll just, so you can reuse this code. So we have tested it for Boomi and also for Salesforce, so it works. So now let's see the access token. You see here, we have separated everything and we got just the access token. All right. So once we have the access token, next is we need to go to the next step. So what is the next step? So if I go to Postman, next step is to post it. So in the post also, so if you see authorization, if you go to the header, so first of all we need to give the API. So this is the post API. So this will be different from your access token. So this will be a different for, so if you are posting, if you are creating something, if you are deleting something, then your NetSuite guys will give you different URL. So you have to take the right URL. So here we have taken the URL from our TWARP. Then we are setting header. So this time the header is JSON. So earlier it was form and URL encoded. This time is application/JSON. So how do I know that? So if I go to the body, if you see here, so if I let me enlarge it. So if you see here, it is raw and JSON. So that means, so here you have to put application/JSON, and you can also see in the header, this is application/JSON. So this is what we are trying to set. We are setting content type is application/JSON. So here we are passing as application type as content type and application/JSON. So inside, if you see, is the same method which we have used for the step 2 as well. Then we are generating we are concatenating bearer space the access token. So how you know that? So if you go to the body, if you go to the header, in the header, if you see here we have written the authorization as bearer, and then everything is the token. Okay, so everything is the token which we received from step 2. So here also we are trying to do the same thing. So here we created the token with bearer, and then we are passing the name as authorization. So authorization bearer, which is nothing but this one, authorization, and then bearer access token. All right, so we set that. Then we prepare the API body. So what is the API body? In Postman, this is the API body. So in ABAP also we have to put the same thing. So let me make it a little small, and I'll just scroll it here so that you can have a better picture. All right, so if I go to the API body, if I do F5, you see we have done nothing but we are concatenating whatever was done here. But in real projects, you might be need to pull data from like sales header, sales item, purchase order, purchase item, anything, and then parse it from ABAP internal table to JSON format. So there are different class methods or function modules to serialize, and then also after that you might also need to do some specific things for your say NetSuite or Boomi or for Salesforce. Okay, so sometimes they will say that put a slash before double quotes. You have to escape some characters which they will tell you. So you have to do this. In this case, for the demo purpose, we have just hard coded the JSON file. So whatever was expected here, we have hard coded here, and we are setting the data. All right, so set C data, and then we do the send method, and then we'll receive the method, and then we get the response. So how do we get response? So same, so get response, and let's see what response we get. I'll just enlarge it now. So response is 204. Perfect. And text is no content, because our NetSuite guys are not sending us anything. They're just sending us the response 205, which is good for us. So we just write it down and we are good. So these are the 3 steps. First, we got the code. Somehow we should automate this, and I think it is so sad that NetSuite is not able to give us a URL where we can get it automatically. A manual intervention is needed, and that's the sad part. Second, we got the use this token, and we got the access token, which is good. And then using this access token, we are posting it to NetSuite, which gave us the written code as 204 and with no content. All right. So whenever you will consume any REST API, apart from the first thing where you need to get the code in NetSuite, which is not very common, it is only specific NetSuite. Others remains the same. Means step 2 and step 3 remains the same. Most of your REST API will not have step 1. So that is ridiculous that NetSuite asks us to put a code. But in say Boomi or in Salesforce or any other API, they will just ask you client ID, client credentials, or user ID, password, and then you generate your own access code, and then using that access code or access token, you go to that post method or get method, and then do whatever you can do with that REST API. So you do not need any manual intervention. But for the case of NetSuite only, we have 3 steps: get code, get access token from NetSuite using this code, and then finally post your data using the access token which you get in step 2. We will put this code in the comment section, so if you need to refer it to consume any REST API, you may use it. And you will also probably need this little help in getting the or reading the token, so which you can use. You can refer this and create your own better way. This is not that good way, but still it works, so maybe you can use it if in case you are in crunch of your time. Alright, so we'll stop here. In the next video, we'll show you how to consume NetSuite REST API using OAuth 1. So this was OAuth 2. We have also another API which we can consume from consume in NetSuite using OAuth 1. So please stay tuned. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for supporting and encouraging SAP Yard. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. Please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that bell icon. Please email us at mailsapyard@gmail.com or WhatsApp us at +1 251 727 9273 if you have any queries. Looking forward to seeing you live on the training day. Have a safe and wonderful time ahead. Thank you very much.